welcome to the Engineering Emotions and Energy Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Wink. Today, going to be doing a little workshop recap. Wait, what is, did I just, was that workshop? Not workshop. Believe it or not, I actually created a flyer for an event for a workshop, and it said the Perfect Life Meditation Workshop. And I printed many copies, and it said that. And did I freak out? No, I didn't. So that and other learnings are all what's in store for today's little update, little getting to know each other, and how can you do something that you want to do and get through to the end, even when maybe it's something you really had never done before, and there are challenges, and you're like at times, man, do I even really want to do this? So this past weekend, I did my first ever in-person meditation workshop. I've done lots of online stuff. 'Cause I really did a lot of really getting into doing my meditations and stuff. Last year when it was pretty much already the start of lockdowns and things like that. I had done some facilitating of large-scale meditations many years before in person. Yet that was kind of when I had finally formulated my Perfect Life meditation system and started teaching that to various people through various means, all online. And so it was really cool to get the opportunity to do an in-person workshop where I can really see people and they can see me, and it's way more interactive with a group of live people, which is super cool. I know that online can also be interactive, and I'm learning ways to make it better and better and more, back and forth, so that people feel like it's as good as being in person. Because really, it's all about how we show up and how we interact. It doesn't really matter where we are in the world. If we put our energy into the interaction, we're going to get what we want out of it, which is always really cool. And so I think this got on the calendar probably 2 months. So this has been like 2 months of planning, where I kind of had got the date, and it's like, okay, I think I have like the outline of what I wanted to do, and then okay, let's start getting the word out, get signups, and get and I had to prepare the material for consumption, because it's one of those things like, okay, I have it enough where I can just kind of do it for very low cost or very informally. But for a workshop, I wanted to provide a really amazing experience. So, I created a workbook that I printed out. That was a learning experience in and of itself. I had not looked up how much it costs or how challenging it could be to print out a workbook. I was like, I had envisioned that, oh, it's going to be this lovely, beautiful, spiral bound, all color, glossy. And it could have been if I was willing to pay about $10 or $15 per workbook, which is for a pretty low cost workshop, not going to work out too well. So I ended up just getting kind of like regular printouts with a staple. So good enough. So learning of how to what should I offer, what should I not. You charge by number of pages, things like that. I had one version that was originally like 50 plus pages, most of them just like transitional pages, like, okay, let's get rid of all of these, and the next slide says, and the next page says. So that was a big learning. And the other thing I learned is that where this workshop took place is about 30 minutes away from where I live. It's a beautiful little studio out in Placerville. I'm a little bit closer to Sacramento. The main city in Placerville is up in the hill, and it's beautiful and gorgeous. It's just not sort of like my center of where I know people locally. And so I learned that, okay, even though a lot of people I know were interested, there's a little bit of like, are they interested enough to drive 30 to maybe 45 minutes to go to this thing? And then the other thing is that, so there's, well, how many people can I attract? But then there's also what is the vibe of the studio already, and who can they attract? And sort of what I learned is that although this is a type of thing that people are really interested in, it's also one of those things that most people go into a yoga or movement studio, uh, they're interested in yoga or movement, things like that. And so it's kind of like, I don't know if I want to go sit and work on my mind purely. Can I move my body? Can I get a little sweat on? And then maybe you sneak some mindfulness stuff in there. Okay, whatever. But I don't want to be dedicated to that. So there's a little of getting people warmed up to the idea of doing something, a different type of activity at a place where they've done other activities. Um, and so what I learned was that the people that showed up through the studio, it seemed like they had a personal connection with the teacher that really knew the material that I was teaching, and so could kind of vouch for what I was offering. So I learned that sort of getting that, even if I can't personally connect with someone, if I can connect with someone who connects with someone and they know what this workshop is all about, that's going to be much, much better at getting it going, getting somebody interested. Another thing that I found out, that I learned was, I believe that most people paid for the workshop in person at the studio, except for one person that I know of, who was already really comfortable with that studio's online, like booking, scheduling, payment system, which is this Mind Body. Which, if you've gone to a lot of yoga or other types of maybe dance related stuff, that's usually the back end system that they're using, is this Mind Body thing, and uh, it can leave a lot to be desired from a usability standpoint. Like, it's highly functional. It does a whole bunch of stuff that a yoga studio or movement studio would want. Yet, if you're not used to it, like, because one of the main things that I recognized was that, if somebody had never done anything through this before, you would go to get information on the workshop and it would immediately say, like, "What's your login? Create a login." And if you've ever gone to most websites to buy something, you'll notice they never ask you to log in or ask you to create a login until you've pretty much already pulled out your credit card, or you're about to pull out your credit card anyway, because they know at that point you're vested, you're interested, you want what they got, and you're willing to put in a little time and effort. But before that, could you imagine going to Amazon, and it doesn't even let you see how much those AA batteries are until you were to create a login? You'd be like, "Oh, I don't know, this seems sketchy. I'm out of here." And so MindBody is a little bit like that. Uh, it's not a sketchy site, not at all. It's very reputable, all good stuff. It's just different. And when people are already wanting to do something a little bit different, do a workshop outside their comfort zone, and then there's this additional differentness of how this website's set up, it's like, I'll do that later, and later usually ends up being never. So that was another thing. So in the future, um, and I did this like a few days before. I created like an Eventbrite setup, which was like a much better user interface. So in the future, I would do that probably from the get go, or create sort of my own web page landing that had all the information, all the details, whatever, and then I actually had like step by step. Here's what you will need to do to register for this event. Online, or here's a way that you could reserve your spot by calling the studio, or if you just want to show up, stuff like that. To make it as easy as possible for people to do the event. So because I'm busy, you're busy, you don't want it to be any harder than it has to be. So that was a big learning event. The other thing is also, social media. Did a lot of social media. The Meadow has a fantastic online presence. Uh, it's one of those I should have started looking, or in the future I will probably email people out sooner, and then do like a reminder, as it gets closer to the event, a little bit more repetition, and then. Well, the other thing that is challenging with social media is that, for the most part, I talk to people, all around the country, even the world, and so I could tell that some people are like, "Oh, wait, this is an in-person thing, nowhere near me, like, pass." Uh, so I definitely, going forward, am gonna, at all likelihood, for most events, be doing like a virtual component, a streaming component, so that it's accessible to everyone who wants to, learn from me, and do practices with me and improve their life with me. It shouldn't just be tied to the geography. Except that, yeah, I think there'll be some things in the future, like a retreat type thing, something like that, or an intensive. But this is something that's going to be worth. This would be worth flying in for. That's something if I feel like would be worth doing, in person only. Like, okay, this is really important. We want focus. We don't want any outside distractions. We want many hours where we can get some work and get some transformation. And then lastly is just sort of relax, let go of the expectations, and trust it'll all work out, no matter what. So when I started the show, I was talking about my workship floppy floop, where I had a flyer, and the thing is I created this flyer digitally, and it went, it was published on social media, saw by several people helping me out, through the Meadow. They were all like, really, and it wasn't until I printed it out, and was going to go make an edit for some other reason, that I noticed that I had, flubbed workshop and put it as workship. And I was like, man, nobody noticed this. You know what? I'm still just going to go publish this. And I even started, in certain places going like, do you notice the big typo on it? And people are like, no. And I have to like literally point. It's like, it says workship. And they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even see it. Because for the most part, we know that it should be workshop. And so most of us are seeing what we want to see, because there's no frame of reference for a workship being in that context, right? So they don't see it. So how often do we get all hung up on these little things that most people aren't going to see because they're not even looking for it? And even if they saw it, who cares? And honestly, I was happy because the Perfect Life Meditation System is not actually about being perfect. It's all about recognizing that all the imperfections, all the problems, all the things are the result of a system working perfectly. I really like to use the analogy of if you've ever had trouble with an electronic device, say a computer, could be I'm going to use a computer or a complex stereo or something like that, and like it's just not working. You push buttons, you try key combinations, you just is the monitor hooked up, is the TV hooked up, are all the audio cables hooked up, is your mouse right? Are the batteries charged? All this stuff, and then it's just nothing. It's nothing. What is wrong with this thing? And then you check and realize it was not plugged in. There's no power at all. This computer, this electronic device was working perfectly the entire time, because it is designed to not work with the power plug not plugged in. If it had turned on without any power plugged in, that would have been weird. That would have been odd, right? You'd be freaking out. You'd be like, "Oh my gosh, what's going on with this thing? Like it's not plugged in." And I'm not talking about a laptop with a battery. I'm talking about like old school desktop or dead laptop battery, something like that. So I don't want any emails. So the workshop was a great success in that I did it. Ended up getting some great people to turn out, and they all had a phenomenal experience, because the promise I wanted to make to them was like, by the time you leave today, you're either going to feel super relaxed or energized, or you're going to feel like more aligned with your purpose in life, or possibly all three. And they all got at least one of those things, and I was super happy for all of them. And I was so glad I did it. I'm looking forward to do it again and doing more offerings of this. So if you're interested, or you got some questions or comments about the show, please email me, podcast@justinwink.com. Subscribe at justinwink.com to make sure you don't miss anything podcast-wise or upcoming events. And also find me on social media, so that another way for us to stay in touch. And remember, rate this podcast 5 stars, whatever way you find us. And write a little review saying how helpful this is, and what it's done for your life. And that is it for today's show. A nice little workship recap. So thank you and good day.